Beneath nearly 8,000 meters of crushing Atlantic pressure lies a mystery so profound. What they found doesn't just challenge existing theories, it rewrites the story of our planet from the ocean floor up. This isn't science fiction. These are peer-reviewed, well-documented findings that hint at a subterranean world more violent, alien, and dynamic than anything we've imagined. Buried in this deep-water abyss are signs of ancient cataclysms, tsunamis that could have wiped out entire coastlines and earthquakes so massive they shook the Caribbean basin for centuries. But that's just the beginning. What if the creatures living down there aren't what we think? What if the deepest parts of the ocean are teeming with organisms that not only defy classification, but rewrite the rules of biology? Species that glow without sunlight. Animals that feed on seaweed drifting from miles above. Microbes that breathe chemicals instead of oxygen. And creatures once thought to be fish aren't even fish at all. But here's where it gets really unsettling. The trench is alive, it's shifting, cracking, sliding. Right now, under the ocean's surface, tectonic plates are grinding, tilting, and threatening to snap. Each movement builds pressure. Each landslide displaces millions of tons of water. And each event has the potential to send a tsunami hurtling toward the shores of multiple nations. Still, despite the risks, much of the trench remains unexplored. It's too deep, too dark, too dangerous. And yet, those brave enough to descend into its depths are uncovering secrets that could transform our understanding of geology, marine biology, and the very fabric of Earth's crust. So ask yourself, what's really hiding down there? What ancient events are encoded in the sediment? And what ticking time bombs might be waiting for the right moment to change everything? In this video, we'll dive into the astonishing evidence, layer by layer, species by species, quake by quake. This is more than a deep-sea discovery. This is a wake-up call. Get ready. Because what's beneath the surface might just shake the surface itself. The Puerto Rico Trench isn't just the deepest part of the Atlantic Ocean. It's a graveyard of geological violence. Beneath its silent waters lie scars of ancient megaquakes and tsunamis that have reshaped coastlines, erased civilizations, and left behind sedimentary warnings still visible today. In 2023, a collaborative mission between the USGS and the University of Puerto Rico unearthed a startling clue. By drilling into a mangrove pond in East Bajura on Puerto Rico's northwest coast, scientists retrieved sediment cores that told a terrifying story. They found a thick half-meter sand layer, strikingly distinct from the surrounding mud. This wasn't random debris. It had an eroded base, a graded structure, and a jumbled mix of marine microfossils and land-based material. It had all the signatures of a tsunami. Radiocarbon analysis dated the layer to between 1470 and 1530 C, long before seismic records existed in the region. But geological evidence speaks louder than ink on parchment. To explain the size of this deposit, researchers modeled a megathrust earthquake, a magnitude 8.0 or higher, originating in the Puerto Rico Trench. But it wasn't an isolated event. More tsunami traces of the same era were found in Angada and the Virgin Islands, over 400 kilometers away. In these places, fields of coral and shell boulders were thrown over a kilometer inland, reaching distances no hurricane in history could match. These traces point to a seismic rupture stretching 300 to 400 kilometers, long enough to unleash a magnitude 8.5 to 9.0 earthquake. The scale of destruction was continental, and it's not just ancient history, it's a recurring threat. The trench is a fault line of monstrous potential where the North American plate slowly forces its way beneath the Caribbean plate. Over decades and centuries, stress builds up silently until it releases explosively. But tectonic pressure isn't the only danger. Multi-beam sonar mapping north of Puerto Rico has revealed immense underwater landslides. One of the largest detected slump heads spans 7 by 3 kilometers. These slope failures, some retrogressive in nature, are capable of displacing immense volumes of water, enough to trigger a tsunami even without a major earthquake. In other words, the region faces a double threat: massive quakes from deep tectonic fractures and sudden landslides from unstable seabeds. NOAA 2003 Ocean Explorer missions documented extensive fissures and collapsed zones, remnants of past upheavals and indicators of future ones. Using advanced imaging like CT scans and X-ray fluorescence, researchers have identified multiple sand layers beneath the island, each corresponding to separate tsunami events. These deposits differ from storm surges through their chaotic composition, deep scour marks, and the mineral traces of oceanic origin. They tell a consistent and chilling narrative. The trench has released its fury before, and it likely will again. Simulations suggest that an earthquake of the magnitude seen in the 15th century could send waves surging across the Atlantic, striking not just the Caribbean, but coastlines in Africa, the southeastern U.S., and parts of Europe. These are not local events, they're basin-wide disasters. And with every new scan, new fault structure, and sediment layer, the evidence grows. The trench is not a relic, it is an active system under pressure. It doesn't whisper, it rumbles beneath the waves. The time for speculation is over. With modern seismic networks, GPS-based geodesy, and ocean floor mapping, scientists are assembling the warning system Earth has written in stone, sand, and silence. Because the next megaquake, it's not a question of if, it's a countdown. For decades, biologists believed the Puerto Rico Trench was inhabited by deep-sea snailfish. This idea took root in 1964 when pairs documented hundreds of ribbon-like creatures along a 1-mile transect at 7,300 meters deep. No samples were collected, and for over 50 years the mystery remained unconfirmed. Then came 2019. Explorer Victor Vescovo's DSV limiting factor descended into the trench once again. This time, the footage told a different story. There were no snailfish. Instead, the cameras revealed a thriving community of holothurians, sea cucumbers, gliding effortlessly across the abyssal floor. These weren't stragglers. Their numbers were astonishing, hundreds per 100 square meters. The dominant genus Peñagon closely mimics snailfish in shape, color, and undulating movement, which likely led to the earlier misidentification. But upon closer review, there was no doubt. These were holothurians, soft-bodied echinoderms perfectly suited for life. Researchers identified at least 3 distinct morphotypes. The first resembled a species from the Synallactidae family, possibly Pseudostitchopus or Mesothuria, with bodies 10 to 12 centimeters long. The second was a flatter, ribbon-shaped holothurian of similar size, seen only a handful of times. The third was a long, cylindrical type about 30 centimeters in length that left spiral trails in the mud, tentatively assigned to the genus Myriatrochus. Each plays a vital ecological role. These animals are deposit feeders, using tube feet and tentacles to sift through sediment and extract organic particles. In a realm where food is delivered sporadically by sinking marine snow, their reworking of the seafloor helps recycle nutrients and maintain a functioning ecosystem. At depths exceeding 7,000 meters, the pressure is more than 700 times what we experience at sea level. The temperature lingers around 2 degrees C, yet these holothurians thrive. Their structural proteins and cell membranes are engineered to function under immense pressure and in total darkness, biological marvels adapted for survival on the brink. Though none have yet been physically collected, the density and diversity observed from submersible footage is clear. Holothurians dominate the trench's benthic ecosystem. What we once mistook for something else has become one of the clearest signals that life finds a way, even in Earth's most extreme environments. The Puerto Rico Trench isn't just deep, it's deformed. Hidden in its depths is the most intense negative gravity anomaly ever recorded on Earth. This is no ordinary dip. It's a gravitational chasm so intense it hints at massive tectonic forces tearing at the planet's crust from below. Roughly 50 kilometers south of the trench's axis, at about 7,950 meters deep, scientists discovered an area where gravity plunges dramatically. This gravitational void isn't a fluke. It's a signature left by the North American plate diving beneath the Caribbean plate, pulling the crust downward with such force that the surface itself sags under the weight. This interaction, known as oblique subduction, is unlike a typical head-on collision. The plates meet at an angle, about 10 to 20 degrees off axis, grinding against one another while one is dragged beneath the other. The result? Massive warping. An ancient carbonate platform that once lay flat now tilts steeply, with its northern edge sunken to 4,000 meters and its southern margin rising 1,300 meters above sea level in Puerto Rico, all in just under 40,000 years. But the gravitational distortion is only one part of the puzzle. Seismic and gravity data point to a more disturbing reality. The subducting slab isn't intact. Around longitude 64.5 degrees W, it's tearing. Imagine a steel beam under too much stress. It bends, then snaps. The Puerto Rico Trench's subduction slab is fracturing under immense tectonic pressure, and we're witnessing the early signs. This theory isn't just mathematical modeling. In 2007, 2 earthquake swarms struck the region, one in April, another in July. Their seismic patterns were unusual. At depths of 50 to 100 kilometers, stresses ran parallel to the trench. Deeper, from 100 to 150 kilometers, they shifted perpendicular. These stress inversions are consistent with a slab tearing apart into distinct segments, each behaving independently, and each potentially destabilizing the other. At the seafloor level, multi-beam sonar and remotely operated vehicles have exposed more chaos. Entire sections of the carbonate platform are shearing off. One slump zone stretches 7 by 3 kilometers, evidence of retrogressive slope failures where sediments collapse and slide in stages. These aren't ancient relics. They're dynamic processes that could send walls of water barreling toward coastal cities with little warning. This makes the trench one of the most tectonically dangerous zones in the Atlantic. It's not just about one plate sliding under another. It's about how those interactions distort gravity, fracture Earth's crust, trigger megaquakes, and spawn tsunamis all at once. The overlapping forces, plate convergence, slab tearing, escarpment failure, create a geological pressure cooker. Fault lines crisscross and compete. Crust buckles and bends. Gravity itself becomes distorted under the tension. For scientists, understanding this region isn't just academic. It's critical for forecasting seismic threats across the Caribbean and beyond. A single rupture in this fragmented subduction zone could unleash chaos on a regional scale. But forecasting isn't easy when your fault lines are breaking in real time. What lies beneath the trench isn't just geological complexity, it's layered instability. It's a system that has shattered before and may do so again. And if that happens, the consequences won't be confined to the seafloor. They'll echo across oceans. The Puerto Rico Trench isn't just a fracture in the seafloor, it's a tectonic war zone. Beneath its quiet surface lies one of Earth's most chaotic boundaries, where plates grind, twist, and tear in ways that defy traditional subduction zone behavior. Located at a sharply oblique plate boundary, the trench marks the zone where the North American plate is diving beneath the Caribbean plate. But this isn't a clean vertical descent. The plates meet at an angle, converging at about 20 millimeters per year along a trajectory of 204 degrees. This skewed geometry creates both downward subduction and sideways shear, forming a hybrid environment of stress, compression, and lateral faulting. The effect? A boundary so geologically tangled that even Earth's crust struggles to cope. Unlike simpler tectonic settings, the Puerto Rico Trench is writhing with fault lines, fracture zones, and stress fields stacked like geological layers of chaos. This shearing motion bends the subducting slab, not gracefully, but violently. Instead of smoothly sliding beneath the Caribbean plate, the North American slab is forced to wrap and fold around the region's northeastern edge. Geological reconstructions show that a once horizontal carbonate platform has been tilted northward by more than 4.5 degrees over just 3.3 million years. This isn't ancient history. It's a process still underway. Seismic data collected from ocean bottom seismographs and land-based sensors reveals a startling pattern. East and west of the 65 degrees W longitude line, the trench exhibits two entirely different stress regimes. To the west, typical subduction behavior dominates, trench normal tension at 50 to 100 kilometers depth. But to the east, the pattern flips. Shallow seismic events show trench normal tension, while deeper ones exhibit trench parallel tension. This inversion is evidence of an evolving slab tier. It suggests that the descending plate has already fractured into at least two segments. These segments are moving independently, responding differently to the forces of gravity, mantle convection, and tectonic drag. And that segmentation introduces a deadly wildcard, cascading instability. A rupture in one slab could cascade into the next, compounding the seismic risk across the region. At the ocean floor, the effects of this deep tearing are just as dramatic. High-resolution multi-beam sonar and submersible footage show extensive slope failures and submarine scars. Retrogressive landslides, where sediment layers collapse in a domino effect, have left visible gouges as large as 7 by 3 kilometers. These scars aren't just signs of past events, they're pressure points primed for future collapse. And every time a section of this scarp gives way, millions of tons of sediment could plunge into the trench, potentially triggering underwater landslides and localized tsunamis. No earthquake required. The trench, then, is not a passive boundary. It's a dynamic, ever-changing system. It flexes. It fractures. It fights back against the forces trying to mold it into a uniform shape, and it never rests. This complexity makes seismic forecasting an enormous challenge. With multiple stress regimes and ongoing flexural failure, the trench resists simplistic modeling. It forces scientists to think in 3 dimensions over vast timescales with a level of unpredictability that mirrors the chaos beneath. But what it reveals is invaluable. By mapping the trench's faults, tracking the seismic swarms, and analyzing the stress inversions, researchers are learning how Earth's crust behaves when pushed to its limits. And make no mistake, this boundary has been pushed. The Puerto Rico Trench isn't a textbook subduction zone. It's an evolving fault system, raw, fragmented, and volatile, where crustal slabs bend like plastic, where fractures deepen in silence, and where one tremor could change everything. Beneath nearly 8,000 meters of ocean, in the pitch-black depths of the Puerto Rico Trench, tiny scavengers known as Lycianacidae amphipods thrive where few life forms dare to exist. Though only centimeters long, these creatures are keystones in one of Earth's most hostile habitats. Their discovery in the trench marked a breakthrough in our understanding of deep-sea biodiversity. Until recently, these amphipods were known primarily from trenches in the Pacific, like the Mariana and Kermadec. The confirmation of their presence in the Atlantic's deepest zone proves that life finds a way, even in geographic isolation and extreme pressure. These shrimp-like organisms are evolutionary marvels. Their bodies are specially adapted to withstand pressures more than 700 times what we experience at sea level. Unique lipids in their cell membranes keep them fluid and functional. Enzymes in their systems don't just survive cold. They thrive in temperatures just above freezing. Some species even produce aluminum hydroxide gel, forming a protective layer that shields them from corrosive sediment chemistry at the trench bottom. But their role in the Hadal ecosystem goes beyond survival. Lycianacidae amphipods are scavengers, critical players in nutrient cycling. They feast on organic material that drifts from surface waters, decaying fish, squid, and fragments of marine mammals. In a world without sunlight, where food is sporadic and scarce, they are nature's recyclers, turning death into life by processing detritus into energy for the entire benthic community. Footage from recent RightSay missions shows amphipods swarming bait within minutes. Some specimens were retrieved from baited traps at depths nearing 7,900 meters. Their gut microbiomes are uniquely suited to digest complex tissues, and genetic sequencing reveals trench-specific adaptations. Proof of evolutionary divergence driven by isolation and environmental pressure. Their significance reaches far beyond marine biology. Studying these amphipods helps scientists explore how life could survive on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus. Their enzymes and biochemical resilience offer potential for biotechnology, bioremediation, and even industrial chemistry. Lycianacity amphipods are proof that the deep ocean, once thought barren and lifeless, is alive with specialization and adaptation. In the crushing silence of the trench, they thrive, not as anomalies, but as evidence of life's ability to conquer even the most extreme frontiers. At staggering depths between 5,000 and 6,200 meters in a realm where sunlight never penetrates, scientists made an unexpected observation. Deep-sea isopods feeding not on decaying fish or squid, but on Sargassum seaweed. This surface-dwelling algae, somehow transported into the abyss, had become a surprising food source for the species Bathyopsurus nibelini. Captured on footage by remotely operated vehicles, these armored isopods were seen actively foraging, dragging pieces of Sargassum across the seafloor. This was no passive scavenging. It was deliberate behavior, an evolutionary strategy that rewrites what we thought we knew about energy dynamics in the Haddle Zone. Traditionally, deep-sea scavengers rely on marine snow or sunken carcasses for sustenance, but Bathyopsurus nibelini breaks the mold. Its serrated mouthparts are uniquely adapted to shred the tough, fibrous fronds of Sargassum, a material few deep-sea organisms can process. The real marvel, though, lies in their internal ecosystem. These isopods possess a highly specialized gut microbiome that produces enzymes capable of breaking down the polysaccharide-rich walls of algae. This microbial partnership enables them to digest plant material and extract nutrients from one of the most chemically complex organic sources reaching the deep. This discovery reveals more than a new feeding habit. It uncovers a critical connection between surface and deep ocean ecosystems. What policies will protect these discoveries before industrialization spreads deeper into the sea? Even scientifically, much remains unknown. The vent systems found in the Puerto Rico Trench differ in structure and mineral composition from those elsewhere in the Atlantic. Ongoing studies are trying to determine their age, chemical makeup, and whether unique species might be living there, undiscovered, undocumented, and isolated for millennia. These aren't just underwater oddities. They are gateways to understanding Earth's geological engine, the origins of life, and possibly life beyond Earth. And they remind us that even in the darkest, most inhospitable parts of our planet, nature builds ecosystems that defy imagination. From volcanic heat comes life. And from the depths of the trench, new stories are rising. At depths greater than 8,000 meters, where the pressure is enough to crush submarines, temperatures hover near freezing, and darkness is absolute. Life doesn't fade, it thrives, but not in the form of fish or giant squids. Down here, the dominant life forms are microscopic, and what scientists have discovered in the Puerto Rico Trench is redefining the very limits of life on Earth. These deep-dwelling organisms are piezophiles, microbes that not only tolerate extreme pressure, but require it to function. When researchers retrieved seawater samples from the trench, they didn't expect to find much. But what they uncovered was a bustling microbial community, built to survive in conditions few believed possible. One of the first discoveries was Profundimonas pizzaphylla, a bacterium isolated from 6,000-meter depths. It was the tip of the iceberg. Subsequent genetic studies revealed microbial communities containing Thaumarchiota, Shrellivan, and novel protobacteria, all modified for extreme conditions. These trench microbes have specialized genes for sulfate reduction, hydrogen and nitrous oxide oxidation, and anaerobic metabolic pathways that support life in an environment where oxygen is nearly non-existent. Their cell membranes are packed with pressure-resistant lipids. Their enzymes function optimally under cold, crushing conditions, but their real genius lies in their genomes. Metagenomic sequencing shows that trench microbes have genome sizes almost double those of surface microbes. Why? Because deep life is unpredictable. These organisms must be ready to digest a wide range of organic materials at any moment, from drifting detritus to chemical compounds released during tectonic activity. These microbes are also environmental engineers. They're not passive residents. They actively shape the trench's ecosystem. By recycling organic matter, oxidizing methane, and transforming nitrogen and sulfur compounds, they sustain the Haddle food web. They make nutrients available to other trench inhabitants, from amphipods to sea cucumbers. Without them, the Puerto Rico Trench would be biologically barren. What's even more fascinating is their similarity to microbes found in the Mariana Trench and other Haddle environments. Despite geographic separation, these microbial communities have evolved in parallel, suggesting that the rules of survival at the bottom of the ocean may be universal. Their activity even influences sediment chemistry. Many of these microbes live within or beneath the seabed, feeding on buried organic carbon. Some utilize fermentation pathways in anoxic layers. Others carry out sulfate reduction, producing hydrogen sulfide and influencing the mineral structure of trench sediments. These chemical interactions help maintain biogeochemical gradients that affect everything from sediment structure to oxygen availability. From a technological standpoint, these organisms are a gold mine. The enzymes they produce could be harnessed for industrial applications that demand stability under extreme conditions like deep-sea oil extraction, high-pressure chemical processing, or waste breakdown in hostile environments. Globally, Haddle trenches like Puerto Rico's cover less than 1% of the seafloor. Yet their steep slopes, confined geometry, and event-driven sedimentation allow them to function like carbon funnels. What little carbon they receive is quickly buried, protected, and, when microbial conditions are right, recycled. This dynamic challenges the assumption that the deep ocean is a passive reservoir. In reality, it's an active participant in Earth's carbon economy, digesting, transforming, and storing carbon in ways that could shape global climate models. Understanding this system is crucial. As climate change alters ocean circulation and storm intensity, the frequency and scale of turbidite events may shift, and with them, the carbon balance of the deep sea. In the Puerto Rico Trench, every layer of mud holds clues to a larger story, one about how Earth breathes, stores memory, and sustains life in silence. In the deepest reaches of the Puerto Rico Trench, the water is as alien as the terrain. At depths approaching 8,300 meters, it isn't just cold and dark. It's chemically distinct, physically isolated, and biologically transformative. The bottom water here is the product of centuries of global ocean circulation, captured in a place where time seems to slow down. In 2022, deep-sea research teams deployed high-precision CTD profilers capable of descending to nearly 9,000 meters. These instruments recorded temperatures around 2.7 degrees, slightly warmer than Pacific Haddle zones, but still near freezing. Salinity was measured at 34.6 PSU, a value that marks the signature of North Atlantic deep water, NADWA, subtly blended with traces of Antarctic bottom water, UBWA. Radiocarbon and tracer studies confirm the mix. Primarily aged NADWA diluted with about 18% Abitaz-Utility influence. This mix gives the trench water a unique identity, one that carries the fingerprints of polar seas from both hemispheres. Yet once this water sinks into the trench, it stays. With minimal vertical mixing and an estimated residence time of over 300 years, the water column here becomes chemically stratified. That isolation has consequences. Over time, benthic organisms and sediment microbes slowly consume oxygen from the bottom layer. With limited replenishment, dissolved oxygen concentrations dwindle to around 4 microM, among the lowest recorded outside of anoxic basins. This oxygen scarcity confines aerobic life to a razor-thin veneer at the sediment surface and forces most microbial activity into anaerobic territory. As oxygen vanishes, alternative metabolic pathways take over. Sulfate reducers, denitrifiers, and fermenters flourish in the oxygen-starved sediments. Microbial zonation becomes sharply defined, shaped by the trench's physical stillness. This in turn impacts the availability of nutrients to higher organisms and determines how energy flows through the benthic food web. The physical properties of the water, its salinity, temperature, and density, also create strong stratification. The slight density increase from colder, saltier at B-Bay enhances layering, further isolating the trench floor from upper ocean current. This stability means that any chemical, biological, or thermal gradient that forms tends to persist, creating microhabitats and niche conditions that would otherwise be erased by turbulence. These layers influence the distribution of organisms. Many megafauna are restricted to oxygenated fringes where respiration is possible. Others have evolved to survive with less, using low oxygen strategies, slow metabolisms, and even internal microbial symbionts to eke out energy. This stratification also preserves the trench's geochemical archive. Sediment layers accumulate slowly, undisturbed by mixing, making the trench a time capsule of past ocean conditions, turbidite events, and biological pulses. These quiet layers become a chronicle of the carbon cycle, tectonic activity, and microbial adaptation. But beyond biology, this isolation presents a crucial window into global climate systems. The behavior of deep water masses like Nadwa and Aboy is tightly linked to planetary heat balance and carbon transport. By studying their aging, transformation, and retention in places like the Puerto Rico Trench, scientists can refine ocean circulation models, critical tools for predicting future climate scenarios. Moreover, understanding how Haddle zones function as nutrient filters, carbon sinks, and biochemical reactors adds vital complexity to global biogeochemical models. These are not inert corners of the ocean. They are active, responsive, and possibly pivotal in understanding Earth's climate resilience. In the trench, the water doesn't just sit. It breathes slowly, changes subtly, and remembers everything. From the shape of a current to the decay of a molecule, every shift leaves its mark. And at the bottom, where the ocean is quietest, the science is loudest.